guys, my name's Imogen, I'm 19 years old and I'm currently on a gap year. I wanted to talk to you today about different things that you can do in your gap year, and for that reason I thought I should enlist the help of a few of my friends who have also taken gap years but have done things that are a little bit different to what I've done, so that we get a wide range of different ideas and experiences of what you could do on your gap year. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the video.
Alright, hi, my name's Grace and I'm currently on a gap year. So if you flash back to kind of June last year, I finished my A-levels. I was going to do the classic like work for the first part of the year and travel and sort of do things I enjoyed for the rest of the year. I worked part-time throughout sixth form, so I had enough money to fund like travelling and going on holiday over the summer after A-levels, but I didn't really have enough to do anything in my gap year or sort of save up a bit for uni. So I had a bit of a look around. That was one of the first things I did after I finished exams. I saw an advert for a job as a healthcare support worker in a hospital, and there was this big new hospital that's just moved to my area, so they needed a lot of staff. So I went to this like walk-in recruitment day, kind of interview day thing, and I got chatting to some of the nurses and some of the recruitment people. I followed them, turns out they were taking me into an interview, so I walk into this interview and they start asking me why I want to work in heart surgery, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure how I got the job, but I did. Yeah, so I got this job in theatre, and then over the summer I sort of had my application process. So a sort of overview of what I actually did on a daily basis. General overview, so before a case I would have to open up and set up everything with the nurse, and then we'd do a big count, make sure we knew exactly what was going to be used in the operation, and keep track of it. And then throughout the operation I would basically just sit down and watch and get anything else they needed, fill in paperwork, organise things, make sure everything was running smoothly, and then we would count everything again at the end to check it was still there, and then before actually closing the chest you would count again, and if there's any discrepancies or anything they stop the operation. You've got to look on the floor, look inside the patient as well, to make sure there's nothing missing. Yeah, and then the patient goes away to intensive care and we basically cleaned everything, filled in some paperwork, got all the rubbish in the bags, put all the instruments away in the right order with their paperwork and stuff, and send it off to be sterilised, and then basically set up for the next operation of the day or maybe tomorrow's operation. So there was quite a lot to learn in the job, so you kind of had to be able to anticipate what the scrub nurse might ask for, and you also had to learn the names of quite a lot of instruments. So say if something fell on the floor, you'd have to write down like what was on the floor, so when they were counting everything they knew what was missing. So you had to learn quite a lot, so it was really good to be able to learn that kind of stuff. So as fun as it was a lot of the time, it was also really tiring. There's a few pictures of me like crying after a really long shift and stuff, not because it was particularly bad, but sometimes it was just so grueling and long. So even though like it was such a great experience, there were some low points and some really good high points, like some of the people I met. I made some really good friends, and obviously the things I got to see, which I think a lot of people my age and with my experience definitely couldn't say they've got to do. Overall, it was such a good experience.
Hi Imogen's friends, it's Jess here, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my gap year. So my gap year was mostly planned. I was 80% sure that I was going to go on a gap year, and then kind of my results and everything else signified that yes, Jess was going to go on a gap year. So in February I went to New Zealand and I explored all the way from the very top of the North Island down to Queenstown and the very bottom of the South Island. So I spent just over a month road tripping around New Zealand. I think the biggest question I get asked is how did you afford this, because New Zealand is a pretty expensive country. So I worked in a supermarket from December 1st to about February 7th, and I worked as much as I possibly could. I picked up as many shifts, as much overtime I could over Christmas, to be able to afford this trip. This trip itself was absolutely incredible. It was one of the most expensive things I've ever done, because travelling is very expensive, however it was worth every single penny. So I started going to New Zealand not really sure knowing what I was going to do or what was happening. Originally I was meant to get a job over there. Didn't work out that way. I found a bus tour called Kiwi Experience, and it's a massive green bus basically, and they normally always have a sale on. So I got one of their bus tickets that brings you all the way around both islands and back up to Auckland, and it was half price. So Kiwi experience, there could be a whole entire video on this, but I think the best part about this for me was that all your travel was booked for you. The only thing I had to worry about was turning up to the bus on time. The hostels, activities, you could sign up for different things depending on what you were interested in or what you wanted to do. So as a solo traveller, kind of travelling alone was pretty scary, especially kind of the first time, and so I found the bus tour a really good way of meeting people who also were in similar positions and wanted to meet other travellers and just explore New Zealand. So every day on the bus looked a little bit different. Some days we woke up super early. I think that the earliest time I ever woke up was 4:30 to go to Milford Sound, and the latest I think I lay into 10, 11. But most days my day started around 8 o'clock. I then quickly went to the hostel kitchen to make some kind of bagel breakfast, and the bus left at 9. We do a few hours of driving, then go for a walk in some of the cool forests or walks around New Zealand, and then we stop off somewhere for lunch. A picnic lunch was pretty popular, either by the sea or by some cool thing that was happening. And then we get to our destination for that day around early afternoon, and we'd have the opportunity to do loads of things, from kayaking, canoeing, walks, skydiving, zip lining, bungee jumping. The activity list is literally never ending. There was so much you could do. So then we do our activities, and we normally head back to the hostel around 6 or 7, grab something to eat. Some days we went out to eat, and then others we made our own food, or if you're like me, you'll go out and eat everybody else's leftovers. And then we come back to the hostel, and we normally go out for a few drinks at a pub or a bar or a club or somewhere like that, and then people would head back to the hostel at different times, and we do it all over again. So some of the highlights of my trip over those few months have to be skydiving. I skydived 20,000 feet over the Bay of Islands, which was the scariest thing but the coolest thing I've ever done. I also absolutely love the Franz Josef Glacier. You get this helicopter ride to the glacier, which is mind-blowing in itself, and then you get to kind of walk on the glacier and hike around different bits. I also loved doing the Maori village with Kiwi experience. They're the only group that let you stay on the Maori village overnight. So there's a whole cultural dinner, cultural dances, we learn songs, we have cake, and then we go in the hot tubs, and then you kind of sleep almost under the stars in the shelters, which are really, really cool. Coronavirus had an effect on my trip. In Queenstown I met some girls, and our plan was to leave the bus and hire up one of these kind of mini camper vans and just explore New Zealand ourselves. However, then coronavirus started and people started heading home. I would so recommend going travelling on your gap year, 100,000,000%. It's one of the best things I've ever done. I learned so much more travelling than I ever did in these past few years. I met so many cool people, and I did so many incredible things. Travelling around with just a backpack was interesting as well. I learned that jumpers were a thing, and even in a hot country you do need a jumper because it will be cold, and you should bring more than one pair of shoes because they will break. Like this. Ah! Toodles. Laters. Bye!
Hello everyone, I just thought I'd talk to you about what's going on this year. But my gap year was very spontaneous. I wanted to go to university, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in university. So I've been thinking for years. I was like, what am I going to do when I get to university? And my original plan obviously was to go, as a child, my original plan was to go to university. I mean, that is what we were basically taught in schools, is to go to university, that's what happens. But when I went travelling to Dubai in August, and when I was travelling, that's the first time doing it solo, and I realised I don't want to go to university, I don't want to be in education, I want to travel the world. when it came to September, I was like, no, it's too late to go to uni. So I was like, let's do another A-level. I did business level 3 and I did that for a couple of months. Then I realised I don't want to be in education. Like, why am I back in education again? So, sorry, I forgot to mention that I've applied for the Navy at this point. Somehow I decided to drop out of college, work full-time, so I was working full-time. I worked until January. In January I went travelling, I went to Nepal. And then obviously I stumbled across the Navy, applied for the Navy, and that's where I am now. And with the Navy, they thankfully pay for your degree. So you can do a degree, they pay for it, still get paid, get to top of the world still. The Navy is obviously for a minimum of 3 years. I've got 3 years in the Navy. If I don't enjoy it, I can leave and go into another sector, do something else in my life. It's okay not to know what you want to do, because there are many people out there who don't know what to do, and there's so many options out there, and you just can't pick. It's okay not to have it all figured out yet. It's probably been one of the best years of my life. I've done amazing things. I've done things I've never would have thought I would have done.
Hello, yes, it's me again. My friend Izzy really wanted to be involved with this video, but she doesn't really like being on camera, so she has sent me a little something to read to you. So I'm just going to do that now. Hi, my name is Izzy. My gap year wasn't planned at all. I got into the university that I had found, so I was really lucky with that. When I got an email through on results day morning, I was happy, but never really felt too excited about it, which in hindsight was a sign. When I went to uni, I just didn't feel like I clicked. I stayed for 7 weeks and came home on Guy Fawkes night because I knew I just wasn't happy there. I didn't like the university or the course, and the distance from home was also a problem for me. It was really scary to drop out, as it threw my future plans out of the window, but now I have no regrets. Back at home, I took some time to reassess what was important to me in terms of making choices about which university I wanted to go to and which course I wanted to do. I then redid my UCAS application whilst looking for Christmas temp jobs. I applied for loads of jobs and ended up working full-time in retail from late November up until now through the pandemic. I've definitely learnt loads from my unintentional gap year, mostly that if something doesn't feel right, it just probably isn't. I've gained work experience, new friends, and have saved up for university. I know I've done the right thing for me, as this time I'm genuinely looking forward to going off to university in September. Izzy will be going to study politics and international relations at the University of Nottingham in September.
Hi, my name's Carla, and I took a planned gap year in Tokyo, Japan to teach English to kids aged 5 to 17 years old. I went with a charity called Project Trust, and they've been sending volunteers to 75 different countries for 50 years. They have a very kind of consistent relationship with the communities that they bring young people to. What I did mainly was assistant teaching. I do have a teaching qualification, but that's not necessary for working with Project Trust. And so I'd mostly help deliver the lessons with other teachers and support the kids in like homework clubs or lunchtime clubs, after school clubs, a lot of clubs, because the main thing as a volunteer kind of English teacher, I was there to provide a real experience of the language, so someone from that culture, and try and like bridge the culture gap, because especially in Japan it's quite severe, and that's generally what Project Trust aims to do, is to bridge gaps between cultures and also language. My standard day would generally start at about 7 AM, so not too early, and I'd take the subway, the metro, into central Tokyo where the school was, and then I teach until about 5 or 6 PM, depending on the day. Sometimes earlier actually, sometimes I got to leave with the students if there was like no clubs and things like that. And so I did have quite a good work-life balance, which people often misperceive about Japan specifically. One of the things that I most enjoyed was being able to, one, learn the language, and get slightly better at the language. Another was to become more familiar with the culture itself, especially things like the food, just the food. And thirdly, which is possibly the biggest one, is I got to benefit from teaching others, but I also got to travel. And that was, you know, obviously everyone often thinks of a gap year as mainly travel and getting new experiences, and I think that shouldn't be looked down on. That should be a really important part of people's gap years, because it is about widening your horizons, and so one of the things I was just most happy about being able to do was travel. And although I didn't get the greatest opportunity to do that because of COVID-19, I did manage to visit some really amazing places within Japan and also in Asia. I got to go to South Korea, I got to go to Thailand, and I got to visit Hokkaido, which is the northernmost island in Japan, and Kyoto, which is one of the most famous cities in Japan, as well as Osaka. I think if you're considering a year teaching or a gap year volunteering, I'd really recommend Project Trust, because although no charity or company is perfect, they do a very good job of preparing you and keeping you safe while out there. And I just think it's an invaluable experience, and I wish you all good luck on whatever you're going to do.
Hello, I'm Molly, I'm 19 and I am on a gap year. Year 13 was quite a stressful time, to be honest, so the idea of going to university straight away, I couldn't even comprehend. I had a part-time job throughout year 12 and 13, as soon as I turned 16, I think, in which I saved up enough money to travel to Thailand and Vietnam and go in training around all of Europe with some of my friends. And after I'd come back from travelling, I didn't have much money left at all. And for me and my group of friends who were also on a gap year, we needed to earn as much money as possible basically in the next 6 months for us to travel to Asia, which we planned. On results day, I was doing a lot of research on just what to do in my gap year. On that day I stumbled across ICS, which I did with Izzy in Nepal, volunteering with VSO, and I decided immediately that was something I wanted to do. So I applied to do that, and then proceeded to have interviews, applicant days, etc. Throughout September in my gap year. I'd got a place guaranteed to do that between January and March of my gap year, so I only have 3 months to work and save enough money for us to go to Asia. So I applied to every temp agency, recruitment agency in my local area. I also used Indeed, honestly my go-to. Indeed is a great website. Indeed, Read and Total Jobs were like the holy grail for me finding jobs. So I'd applied to a lot of recruitment agencies, and then a job popped up that was advertised as an admissions assistant. This was in one of my local temp agencies. So I'd applied to do international law at uni and wanted more relevant experience on my CV. Once my temporary contract as an admissions assistant had ended, I'd applied for a job as a legal assistant in a law firm near me. Now the pay wasn't great, so I was using this as a filler between I found my next job, and then just put on my CV as experience, and it's more relevant to my degree. So that's everything really. I managed to save quite a bit of money just from applying for jobs with temp agencies. If you filter by pay, high to low, and just apply for anything, if you do your background research and you use any experience that you have had prior to this, like prior to that job, 90% of the time it works. Hope you got some understanding from what I've said. Bye!
I'm just going to briefly talk through what I did in my gap year, although there will be full videos on all of the things I'm about to talk about in due course. So if you're not already, subscribe down below, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more gap year content, and leave me a comment. The first thing I did in my gap year was I went interrailing around Europe. I then went over to Germany for 2.5–3 months in order to au pair with a German family and improve my language skills. After that, in January, I took part in ICS with Grace, Harry and Molly, who you should have seen in this video already. And although I had more plans to go and travel a bit more around Europe, unfortunately I had to come home. But this can only be seen as a positive, because if I didn't have to come home, then I wouldn't have been making these YouTube videos for you now, and I wouldn't have started my channel. So that is all for this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed hearing what me and my friends got up to in our gap years, and hopefully this has helped you if you're thinking of planning a gap year, or it might have inspired you to do something that you weren't even considering beforehand. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for another video.